Hey, I'm Robin Gully.
I'm John Justin.
We are your Ward 2 Council reps here in West St. Paul, here to give you the council recap. And actually, we're mostly going to give you the open council work session recap for tonight because we really had very little on the council agenda.
Yeah.
But we did have a long open council work session.
That we did. A pleasantly long one. Not long in the bad way.
No, actually, we had so much discussion that we didn't get through all of the items that we wanted to talk about.
Well, and part of that, I should mention this because I think people are probably wondering why the open council work sessions have been so long. Part of that is because we chose not to do a formal retreat for our strategic planning. And so what we're doing is we're kind of doing our strategic planning, which you should do every year, in those open council work sessions. So if you're wondering about why these topics are kind of big topics, sort of overview topics, that's why. So we're kind of covering what we would have in multiple meetings rather than one all-day affair.
Yeah. So if you're ever interested in the topics that we're taking up in open council work session, that's where we do a lot of our talking and workshopping stuff. So even if you watch council meetings, if you've never watched open council work session, highly recommend it. It's televised just like council, or it's live streamed. All right, so the first thing that we talked about was the missing middle housing bill. You want to say a couple words about it?
So there's a bill going through the legislature right now. It's in committee, I think, right now. And so it's still kind of forming into what the eventual bill is. And it's going to have impacts on local government and their capability to do things with zoning and a few other things, public input on projects and things like that. It would be way too long to go into this right now. And I think that probably there are a variety of opinions on what we think of it at the council table. So it's not like I can give you a summation of and the council believes this, because I think we're all finding our own way through it. So I would just encourage people to kind of get informed about it. It does have impacts on local government, and there's reasons for it. There's reasons against portions of it possibly. But yeah, if you're curious, I mean, it's something to look into. I don't think it's gotten a lot of press, but it is something that does have an effect, very specific effect on local government. So if you want to know more about that, search for missing middle housing. But it gets into a lot of things. It's kind of a vague term for the overarching aspect of what it is.
Yeah.
So I would say look into it. If you do have questions, you can reach out to us, reach out to the city. They can kind of fill you in on it too.
Yeah, definitely.
And reach out to your representatives, if you have concerns or questions or clarifications, both at the local level and at the state level, because we're all in it together there.
Yeah,
so,
we would love to hear from you, hear what you think about this bill.
Absolutely.
And it, I'll just say very quickly that it has to do with density in residential neighborhoods, but it touches on a lot of different things, especially in local government, and how we're sort of able to manage those things. And so,
if you want to see my screed on it, I did it in the open council work session, so you can get my opinion pretty easily, and other people's opinions too. So I won't reiterate it here.
Yeah, for sure.
So next thing is...
Actually, we're really excited to talk about this, although it's still... So obviously we're talking about it in an open council work session, so it's not like a fully fleshed out thing just this second, but we do have money set aside for community neighborhood grants for this year. And so last year we decided that we were going to set aside $25,000 for somebody to come and apply for grants to do things that will improve our city. And so tonight in open council work session, what we were really talking about was the specifics of that. So who do we want to be able to apply? Who do we want to be able to access this money? Are there any, parameters that we want to put around it? Is it individuals? Is it businesses? Is it nonprofits? Is it, is it for anything at all? Are there specific kinds of projects that we want to see? How much should the grants be? And I don't want to necessarily say what conclusions we came to, because I think there were kind of a lot of ideas thrown around, but there was, I would say, fairly general agreement that we wanted the projects to be available for a broad variety of reasons. And and some of this has to go through our lawyers too, so we can figure out what we can and can't do. But so examples would be things like art projects, block parties, education, cultural celebrations, cleanups, gardening, and that we would like the funds to be targeted at individuals in neighborhoods who have constituencies, although we definitely talked about also making them available to nonprofits who want to sponsor a community event. And how much people apply for, I don't know that we put any like specific parameters about it, but we have $25,000 a year, so I think in theory we'd like that to go to.
It won't be one $25,000.
It won't be one $25,000 event. We'd like it to get spread around the city.
And I think some of this is almost that learn by doing sort of aspect. I think the one thing I could say we did land on is the idea that what we're really hoping is that this is a community generated sort of thing, and that the community can come to us and we can see, I mean, we do a lot of things as a city, kind of from the top down level of like, let's create events, whether it's Explore West St. Paul Days, open houses, Cops in the Park, all of these other things. That's great. But, kind of in the meet you where you're at sort of aspect, the other side of this is if we keep this pretty open to the amount that we can, the hope is that there are people out, and I know there are people in our community that have amazing ideas, and this can kind of springboard that. And I think that this year, I think the general consensus is we're going to try and figure out, well, what is possible by just sort of opening it up. And obviously there are limitations. It can't be used for fundraising or lobbying or election stuff or any specifically religious thing. And those are really kind of like legal parameters. And as Robin mentioned, the other trick about this is there are legal aspects to this. We can't show favoritism to certain groups over other groups. We can't. And so we're trying to figure that out too. What we don't want to be in a situation where somebody would go, well, you're choosing this group over this group. And so that's going to be kind of the legal side and something we have to put a lot of thought into, especially because it's a limited resource pool, and so we will, if it's super successful, at least this year, we will have to make some choices. And how do we make those choices without impacting anybody's freedom of expression, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's sort of what we're wrangling now. But I think the reason we're taking sort of a hands-off perspective, I mean, not hands-off in the sense that we're going to want to see that it actually happened. Like, for example, don't worry, if we give somebody $1,000 to do a gardening project and then, the city shows up and they planted a rhododendron and that's it, well, we're going to be asking where the other $975 went to. So it's not going to be completely unfettered. But we are trying to encourage people, that's you, to try and come up with ideas and just throw them out there, and they may not be something we can do. They may be limitations about what we can do. We don't know that yet, but I don't want that to in any way be a freeze of like, well, I'm just not even going to try to do this because I don't think they're going to want to do it. I'd encourage everybody to throw as much out there as you can.
And we are, we talked with city staff and we, sorry, something was showing up on my phone. Real life fixing troubleshooting.
If you're wondering why I was like, that wasn't pointing at you. I pointed at you. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to be rude.
What was I saying? We want to make the application as simple as possible too. So we were trying to make sure that we capture what we want to capture without it being overly burdensome.
Minimizing burdens to entry, I think, is there are barriers. I mean, we don't want that. So
no, but
and then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that we're committed to doing this and continuing to do it. It's not like if it doesn't work this year, we're just done and we're just going to give up. But there's possibilities for expansion if we really see a lot of interest. Maybe we can expand. Maybe we can use this as a framework to kind of. I mean, if we had something that was really successful, it could turn into something that could be a city line item budget thing. If we find out like, oh, everybody's interested in doing this, that could become a policy and this could grow other things. So the hope is a lot of things come out of this.
Definitely.
It's the first year, so a little pessimism is warranted because we have to get the word out to people too.
We have to get the word out. But I would say, think about your ideas now because this fund, when it becomes available, we want people to apply for it. And it could be like, we're going to do, in theory, again, like we're still working on the parameters, but
Mhm.
in my mind at least, it could be something like, we're gonna do a neighborhood cleanup, we wanna make sure that we get pizza for everybody. Or
Yeah.
we're gonna do a gardening project in the park and we wanna like use it to buy plants. Or we
Mhm.
wanna do a mural project, or we wanna do, and what we want to see is that you have a base of people that are interested in doing it with
Mhm.
you. So
Yep.
we want to see that you're going to do it with your neighbors, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
But it doesn't, we don't have really strict parameters, so it could potentially be something like, we want to spruce up the garden near our apartment complex or something like
Mhm.
that. Or we'll just see what people want.
And a neighborhood is kind of self-defined, right? Like this could be, maybe this is just your block.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is, I'll just use 40 acres because I always use 40 acres. Maybe this is all of 40 acres. Maybe
Yeah.
this is all of Mud Lake getting
Yeah.
together on a thing. Maybe it's one block. Maybe it's, who knows?
Yeah.
And that's the fun part is the who knows
Seeing
part.
what people get
I
excited about.
think we could see some really neat, very out of nowhere ideas that might be really fantastic. So that's the hope.
So that's coming down, in the next, I would say this application should be available, let's see, in the next couple months.
I'm guessing it's going to be pretty quick because obviously the longer we wait, the less time
The
we
less
have
time
to,
we have
to
to
do
do.
them. And we do live in Minnesota, and even though last year you could have done gardening projects pretty much through December, that probably won't happen again. So we wanted to definitely get this active in time for good weather where maybe we can have some, because I think a lot of these will have an outdoor component. So
Really.
we're working on it. So get
But
the
yeah,
word out
get your
there.
ideas out,
Yeah.
talk to your neighbors, see if there's something you'd be interested in doing together. We would love to fund it. And
Yeah. Maybe there's something you thought of 5 years ago that would be really cool in the neighborhood, but you never got there, And this would be the time to see if maybe we can get you there.
Then the last thing we talked to, see why there was a lot of discussion in Open Council work session. We were
Yep.
like, oh yes, we get to give money out to our community to
Yep.
do cool things. Like, doesn't get better than that. Next, we talked about budgeting, and this was such a good conversation, one of the best presentations we've had, and also I have no idea how to summarize it, except that we were looking at different examples of budgets based on how changing different factors.
I think the big takeaway is that a lot of times people don't understand why development is a positive influence on taxes specifically. And I think that it would be, again, if that's something you've asked, like, well, why is it good for me to have this area redeveloped? I think this was the best summary I have seen, and you get a little in the weeds in the beginning because that's the way that government works. But as you get deeper, I think it really kind of points to why redevelopment is key. As we all know, everybody is feeling, we've all opened our property tax statements recently. I was surprised, I'll just say that, not in the most positive way, but here we are. And how there are ways to impact that and to slow that sort of increase in property taxes. Obviously, home values going up is a big part of things. We have all talked about this a million times over. But it really is a good framework to understand that even I believe it is a 1% development annually, which is, I think, $30 million, which is like a project, half a project in some cases, a tenth of a project in some cases. How that directly impacts over a 10-year period the rise or lack thereof of individual property taxes for both, homeowners, but also renters who are, that passes through to renters, it passes through to people that live in apartments. You are paying property taxes if you live in an apartment. If your neighbor is in an apartment, they're paying property taxes, so it's all of us together. And so it really kind of was a very succinct description of that. Our city manager will murder me if I don't clarify in the utmost terms. These numbers are not real.
These numbers
Do not look at this and see that you're
they
going.
don't relate to our city.
What is actually coming. It is a thought experiment, if you will, to show 3 scenarios, one of which there's no development. And development can be anything from you improving your home to a large-scale development. one that is no development and no increase in value,
Yeah.
one 3% increase in value, no development, and then with 1% development. And the numbers just honestly, they don't lie.
Yeah.
Development is a really crucial part of controlling property taxes for residents of this city.
Our city manager, Nate, did, however, let us know that from now on, when we're having budget discussions, we're gonna see a document that looks like this.
Mhm.
I think with the idea that we will be able to like sort of understand and see some of these changes.
Yep.
Okay, like here's what's happening and here's how it's affecting.
Mhm.
So these, I can only imagine, will be showing up in our packets in the next months as well, and you should take a look at them and just, learn sort of what, if you're interested in this kind of thing. But I think we're all kind of interested in how we pay for things as a city.
Absolutely.
So I really recommend it. It does look kind of dense, but it's actually not that, it's fairly easy to read. It shows us like 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and then, going out projections for different years. And this is not a real thing.
No,
These are fake numbers.
Yep. Don't look at that and
Don't
panic,
think
because
that
if you look
these
at
are real numbers.
example 1
Yeah.
and you see the increase over 10 years in property taxes, you're going to come and attack us. That's not what's happening.
No.
It's
But-
done for the intellectual
Understanding.
explanatory side of it,
Yeah.
not for real number factors. But I would really recommend that people take a look at it, because it is hard to wrap your head around why these things work,
Yeah.
how they work, why a tax rate percentage isn't really a measure of real dollars of what happens to you, which is one of the things that I'll tell you coming into this
Yeah.
was the most confusing to me,
Yeah.
because I just assumed, well, if the tax rate goes up this much, then that equates to dollars going up this much. It doesn't really work that way when you figure in development and you
Doesn't.
figure in changes in various other portions of it. So you'd have the same tax rate on 3 different graphs, and you can have a $1,000 differential
And
in
fact,
real money.
This is in the presentation too, in a way that I think is like really comprehensible. And we've kind of talked about it before, but Nate's, so if you go to the Open Council work session packet and you look at his presentation, which I am almost sure is in the packet.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
It does a really good breakdown of what these tax rates mean in different scenarios. That's like very, very easy to understand. So he did a really nice job. That was it for Open Council work session.
And then really the only piece of business,
Just one thing in the council.
and that was swearing in a new officer.
Isabel Lawler, our new police officer.
Yep, who is coming out of being a CSO, community service officer, up until now. Clearly from the humongous crowd that we had, has
so
a
many
lot of
people.
ties in the community, has a lot of ties into our current law enforcement,
Yeah,
and some very happy people there.
yeah, very excited.
I got to see someone's grandmother pin their badge on them for the first time,
That
which was
really lovely.
maybe the most adorable thing I've seen yet. Nothing against all the lovely people that have pinned other people, but I'm a sucker
they're
for
all great
grandmas.
too, but grandmas are lovely, and Isabel seems just great, and I think we'll be lucky. And I think this is a good opportunity to mention that if you or anyone that you know, especially in West St. Paul, like has ever considered being a police officer, we're always in need of great people who are like interested in that, and being a community service officer is a really good way to explore it and find out more about what it's like. So
Absolutely.
if you're ever interested, and we have the Citizens Police Academy too, which is an even lower entry into learning about that stuff. So that's going to be coming up in the fall. I think it might be in the fall. I don't know.
I believe you. I don't remember.
Oh well, you can check the website if you want to know.
I've
but
never been
heard
known to be
things.
good with dates and times.
I've heard good things from people who've done it. So
Absolutely.
anyway, that's all we've got.
That's
so
everything.
Thanks everyone.
Have a great night.